Hello there, my dears. It's Grandma Rosemary, and what I'm about to tell you today, I have never, ever told anyone before. When I faked that trip and found out my husband was living a completely different life, I thought I was going to die from the pain. But look at me. Here I am, stronger than ever. Let me tell you how a little lie led me to uncover the biggest lie of my life. It was the year 1987. I was 45 years old, and I had been married to Arthur for 23 years. My kids were grown up now. Mary had just turned 20 and was studying nursing, and my little George was 18 and working with his dad at the auto shop. I thought I had the perfect life, you know, a humble but clean little house, a hard-working husband, and good kids. But my God, was I ever wrong? It all started when my sister Claire invited me to spend a week at her house in Chicago. I hadn't seen her in years, and she was so insistent. "Rosemary, come on over. You need a little rest from all that work," she said. I told Arthur, and he got weird. Really weird. "Why do you need to go so far, honey?" he asked me, while he was fixing something on the car in the yard. His hands were covered in grease, but there was something in his eyes, like nervousness, like fear. "He's my sister, Arthur. I haven't seen her in 3 years. It's only for a week," I insisted, drying my hands on my apron after washing the lunch dishes. He kept saying no, making 1,000 excuses, that the shop needed his help, that the kids needed me at home, that money was tight. But I had already made up my mind, and when Grandma Rosemary makes up her mind, well, you know how we women are when we've decided on something. I bought my ticket in secret and told him I was leaving Monday morning and would be back the following Sunday. That weekend, Arthur was acting strange, like he was restless, but I just thought it was because he was going to miss me. How naive I was, my God. On Sunday night, he helped me pack my small suitcase, even gave me a kiss on the forehead and said, "Take care of yourself, my love. I'm going to miss you." And I, like a fool, believed every word. Early Monday morning, I headed to the bus station. Arthur had already left for the shop at 6 o'clock in the morning, just like always. Mary came with me to the bus. "Mum, have a great time with Aunt Claire. You deserve it," my girl said, giving me a big hug. George had already gone to work with his dad. But here's what I've never told my kids. I didn't get on that bus. You know why? Because something inside me, a little voice telling me that something wasn't right, made me change my mind at the very last second. I watched the bus leave, and I stood there at the station with my suitcase, feeling like I was doing something very important, even though I didn't know what. I went to my best friend Martha's house, who lived on the other side of town. I explained everything to her, and she, who was always so wise, said, "Rosemary, if your heart is telling you something is going on, listen to it. Stay here with me for the week, and let's see what you find out." That first night, I couldn't sleep at all. I stayed awake wondering if I was doing the right thing, if it wasn't just my own paranoia. But something was telling me my suspicion was right. On Tuesday morning, Martha and I went to the market early. The market was near the auto shop where Arthur worked, but on a different road that he never took. And that's when I saw him. My husband, my own husband, was leaving the shop, but he wasn't heading toward our house. He was walking toward a neighborhood called the Elms, where we didn't know anyone. And the strangest thing was, he was all dressed up, in a shirt I didn't recognize, and he had even put on cologne. I could smell it from far away. "Martha," I said to my friend, grabbing her arm. "Follow me, but slowly," and we started walking behind him, keeping our distance. Arthur walked about 10 blocks until he got to a really cute yellow house, with white fences and a little garden in front. And this is what broke my heart into a million pieces. He took keys out of his pocket. Keys, as if it were his own house. He opened the door and walked in like he owned the place. Martha and I hid behind a big oak tree on the corner and stayed there, waiting, not knowing what to think. 10 minutes later, a woman came out. A woman I had never seen in my life, but who was pregnant, very pregnant, about 7 or 8 months along. She was young, maybe 25 years old, pretty, with long dark hair, and she was wearing a blue floral dress. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was when my husband came out behind her, put his hand on her belly, and kissed her. It wasn't a friendly kiss. It wasn't a casual kiss. It was a kiss between a husband and a wife. I felt my heart was going to jump right out of my chest. Martha had to hold me up because my legs turned to jelly. "Calm down, Rosemary," she whispered to me. "Calm down. We need to see what else happens." We watched them walk toward the corner bakery, holding hands like a normal couple, just like he and I used to walk on Sundays after church. But it was him with her, with that pregnant woman whose name I didn't even know. We waited until they came back. This time, they were carrying fresh bread and a bag of groceries. They went inside the house, and I was just left standing there like a statue, trying to understand what was happening to my life. "Let's go, Rosemary," Martha said to me. "Let's go before they see us." But I couldn't move. It was like my feet were glued to the ground. We went back to Martha's house, and I just cried. I cried like I had never cried in my life. Not when my mother died, not when I lost my baby before Mary was born. I cried until I had no more tears left. "What am I going to do, Martha? What am I going to do?" I asked her through sobs. "First," she said to me, giving me some chamomile tea to calm me down. "First, you need to know the whole truth. This might be bigger than we think." And she was right. This was so much bigger. The next day, Wednesday, we went back, this time earlier, before 7 o'clock in the morning. We wanted to see if Arthur slept there, if he came out of that house in the morning. And he did. At 7:15, he came out of the yellow house, said goodbye to the woman with another kiss, and walked toward the shop, as if nothing were happening, like it was the most normal thing in the world. We waited until he was well on his way. And then, Martha had an idea that scared me a lot, but I knew it was necessary. "Rosemary," she said to me, "you're going to stay here and watch. I'm going to go knock on that door and talk to that woman. I'll tell her I'm from the census or something, and I'm going to find out who she is." "No, Martha. What if she figures it out? What if she tells Arthur?" I said, scared to death. "She won't figure it out with me," she replied with that confidence my friend always had. "Just trust me." I watched her walk toward the yellow house, knock on the door, and the woman came out. From where I was hidden, I could see them talking, but I couldn't hear what they were saying. Martha was there for about 15 minutes, talking very animatedly with the woman, even laughing sometimes. When she came back to me, she was pale. "Rosemary," she said, "sit down. What I'm about to tell you is going to hurt a lot, but you need to know it." I sat on a stone nearby, near the big oak tree, and waited. "That woman's name is Jasmine. She's 24 years old and says she's been living with her husband Arthur for 5 years, she told me. 5 years, Rosemary. She says they got married 3 years ago at City Hall, and that this is going to be their second child. They already have a 2-year-old girl named Sophia." I think I died a little inside at that moment. 5 years, married for 3 years, a 2-year-old girl, and another baby on the way. "Did you ask her? Did you ask her what her husband's name was?" I asked, my voice breaking. "Arthur Gonzalez Herrera. The same name. The same last name. Rosemary. It's him. Without a doubt. It's him." I don't remember how I got back to Martha's house that day. I think she carried me because I couldn't walk. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. My husband, the father of my children, the man I had been married to for 23 years, had another family, another wife, other children, a completely different life on the other side of town. That night, I couldn't eat anything. Martha made me chicken soup, my favorite food, but I couldn't even try it. Everything tasted like ashes in my mouth. "Rosemary," Martha said to me, sitting by my side in her small living room, "you have to decide what you're going to do. You can't stay like this forever." "What am I going to do?" I answered. "How do I tell my kids that their dad has another family? How do I explain that I've been married to a liar for 23 years? How do I tell them they have siblings they don't know about?" One step at a time, my love. One step at a time. On Thursday, I decided I needed to see more. I needed to know everything, the whole truth, no matter how much it hurt. This time we went later, around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We wanted to see if there was more to discover, if there were more secrets hidden in that yellow house. And there were. My God, there were. When we got close to the house, we saw Jasmine in the yard, hanging clothes on the line, and playing in the yard was a little girl with curly dark hair, who she looked so much like George when he was little. The little girl was running back and forth, laughing, and every time she laughed, I felt like a knife was being plunged into my chest. Because that laugh was just like my kids when they were small. "Sophia, come here, my love," Jasmine called to her from the clothesline. "Let's get you cleaned up for when Daddy gets home." "Daddy," she called Arthur. "Daddy." My Arthur, the father of my children. We stayed there until Arthur arrived, around 6:30. This time, he was carrying a toy in his hands, a little doll wrapped in gift paper. "Daddy! Daddy!" the little girl yelled, running toward him with her arms open. He lifted her up, covered her in kisses, and gave her the gift. "For my beautiful princess," he said, as Jasmine came over smiling, stroking her belly. I watched them go into the house like a happy family. A family that wasn't mine, but that was his. The man who came to my house every night, who sat at my table to eat, who slept in my bed, who told me he loved me. He had another whole family. "Martha," I said to my friend, "I need to know how long. I need to know when all this started. How has he been living like this for so long without me noticing?" "How are you going to find that out, Rosemary?" she asked. "I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to talk to Jasmine." "Are you crazy? What if she tells Arthur you came?" "She won't tell him, because when I tell her who I really am, she's going to understand that we are both victims of the same lie." On Friday morning, I waited for Arthur to go to the shop and walked toward the yellow house. My heart was pounding, my hands were sweating, but I knew I had to do it. I knocked on the door gently. Jasmine came out, with the little girl holding onto her dress. "Good morning," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Can we talk for a moment? Are you the census lady who came the other day?" "My neighbor told me a lady came asking about the residents of the house," she replied with a kind smile. "No," I said, taking a deep breath. "I'm Rosemary Gonzalez, Arthur Gonzalez's wife." Her face completely changed. She went pale, her eyes widened, and she automatically put a protective hand on her belly. "What did you say?" she asked with a trembling voice. "I'm Arthur's wife. We've been married for 23 years. We have 2 children, Mary and George, and I just found out he has another life here, with you." The poor girl started crying immediately. It wasn't a cry of guilt. It was a cry of shock, of not being able to believe what she was hearing. "No, no, no," she said through sobs. "He told me he was single when we met. He told me he had never been married. We got married 3 years ago. We have papers. We have papers, I asked. Yes, our marriage certificate. He told me that. Show me, I said. She went inside and came out with a folder. Inside was a marriage certificate. Arthur Gonzalez and Jasmine Rodriguez, married at City Hall 3 years ago. But I was also married to Arthur Gonzalez, in church and at City Hall, for 23 years. He has 2 marriages, I said, almost unable to believe what I was saying. He's been married to me since 1964, and to you since 1984. He's a bigamist. Jasmine sat down on the steps of her house, crying uncontrollably, with the little girl trying to comfort her without understanding what was happening. How is this possible? She asked me. How could he do this? How could he lie to me like this? I love him, Mrs. Rosemary. I love him with all my soul. He is my life. He is the father of my children. I sat down next to her on those steps, and for the first time in 5 days, I didn't feel anger toward her. I felt pity. We were both victims of the same lie, the same betrayal. How long have you known him? I asked her. For 6 years. I worked at Mrs. Carmen's bakery, and he would come in every day to buy bread. He told me he lived alone, that he was a mechanic, that he wanted to start a family with a good woman. I was very young, 18 years old, and I fell madly in love with him. And you never suspected anything? Did it never seem strange that he couldn't be with you every night? He told me he had a lot of work, that sometimes he stayed very late at the shop fixing cars in an emergency, or that he had to travel to get parts from other cities. I believed everything he said. Why wouldn't I believe my husband? We talked for 2 hours. She told me that Arthur came to her house every day at 6:30 in the afternoon. He would have dinner with them, play with the little girl, watch TV, and stay until 11 o'clock at night. Then he would leave, telling her he had to check on some things at the shop. He would get to my house at 11:30. He would tell me he had been working late. He would shower, eat something light if he was hungry, and go to bed with me as if nothing had happened. For 6 years, Arthur had been living 2 perfectly organized lives. By day, he worked at the shop. From 6:30 to 11, he was with Jasmine and her family. From 11:30 onwards, he was with me and my children. On weekends, he managed to spend a few hours with each family. He told Jasmine he had extra work on Saturdays and Sundays. He told me he had to help a friend with some project or other. And the marriage papers? I asked her. How did he manage to marry you if he was already married to me? He took care of everything, she replied. He told me he had a friend at City Hall who did favors for couples who didn't have a lot of money, and that's why he could get the certificate for cheaper. I never suspected anything. Did he forge the papers, or did he manage to get a fake certificate? For 3 years, Jasmine had been believing she was Arthur's legal wife, when the only legal wife was me. But at that moment, sitting on those steps, with that pregnant girl who had been deceived just like I had, I understood something very important. The problem wasn't who was the legal wife and who wasn't. The problem was that Arthur had lied to both of us, had used both of us, had played with our lives and our feelings for years. What are we going to do? Jasmine asked me, wiping her tears. First, I said, I'm going to confront him. Tonight, when he gets home, I'm going to tell him that I know everything, and tomorrow I'll come and tell you what happened. What if he gets mad? What if he gets violent? Arthur has never been violent, I answered. He's a liar, he's a traitor, but he's not violent. But you have to be prepared for what might happen. Do you think he's going to leave me? She asked, and in her eyes, I saw the same fear I had been feeling all those days. I don't know, my dear, but what I do know is that you can't keep living a lie. Neither of us can. We deserve something better than this. I left that yellow house with my heart more confused than ever. On one hand, I had all the anger in the world against Arthur, but on the other hand, I had a very deep sadness for Jasmine, for that innocent little girl, for the baby on the way. That afternoon, I went back to my house. It was Friday, and I was supposed to be getting back from Chicago on Sunday, but I decided it was time to face the situation. I arrived around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Mary was studying in her room, and George hadn't gotten home from the shop yet. The house was just as I had left it. But something felt different. Or maybe it was me who felt different. I sat in the living room to wait. I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't do anything. I just sat and waited for the man who had been my husband for 23 years, but who in reality I didn't know at all. At exactly 11:30, Arthur arrived. He came in through the back door, as always, and was very surprised to see me sitting in the living room. "Rosemary, what are you doing here? Weren't you coming back until Sunday?" he said, and I could see nervousness in his eyes. "Yes, I was going to come back on Sunday, but I changed my mind. We need to talk, Arthur." He came closer and gave me a kiss on the cheek, just like he always did when he got home from work. But this time, I didn't let him. I pulled away. "What's wrong, my love? Are you sick?" he asked me. "Arthur," I said, looking him directly in the eyes, "I know about Jasmine." He froze completely, like a statue. I saw the colour drain from his face, how he started to sweat. What are you saying?" he asked with a trembling voice. "I know about Jasmine Rodriguez. I know about the yellow house in the Elms. I know about Sophia, your 2-year-old daughter. I know about the baby on the way. I know about your other marriage. I know everything, Arthur. Everything." He sat down on the sofa next to me, put his face in his hands, and started to cry. My husband, who I had never seen cry in 23 years of marriage, started crying like a child. Rosemary, I, he started to say, but he couldn't finish the sentences. "How long?" I asked him. "How long have you been living this lie?" "6 years," he replied without lifting his face. "6 years, Rosemary. But I never wanted this to happen. I never wanted to hurt you or the kids." "But you did want to hurt Jasmine? You did want to hurt that innocent little girl? You did want to hurt the baby on the way?" No, it's just that everything got complicated. At first it was just a fling, but then she got pregnant and I couldn't leave her alone. And then we got attached. And then you decided to live 2 lives instead of facing the reality of one. We both cried that night. We cried for 23 years of marriage that had turned into a lie. We cried for our children, who were going to suffer so much when they found out. We cried for Jasmine and her children, who were also going to suffer. We cried for everything that had been, and for everything that could no longer be. "Are you going to forgive me, Rosemary?" he asked me before dawn, when we had no more tears left. "I don't know, Arthur," I answered honestly. "I don't know if I can forgive something like this. I don't know if I can keep living with you knowing that you have another family. I don't know if I can ever trust you again." "I'll break up with Jasmine," he said. "I'll come back here and I'll never go over there again. We'll go on like before, as if nothing happened." "As if nothing happened?" I asked, almost screaming. "How are you going to leave a pregnant woman with a small child? How are you going to abandon your children? And how do you think I'm going to be able to live in peace, knowing there's a family destroyed because of us?" "Then what do you want me to do, Rosemary? What do you want?" "I want you to be honest for the first time in 6 years. I want you to tell me the truth. Who do you love more? Who do you really want to be with?" That silence that followed my question gave me all the answer I needed. Arthur couldn't tell me he loved me more. He couldn't tell me he wanted to be with me. In that silence, I understood that I had already lost my husband a long time ago, but I had been living with a ghost. On Saturday morning, I told my kids everything. It was the hardest thing I have ever done in my life. To see the look on Mary's face when I explained that her dad had another family, to see the look on George's face when I told him he had siblings he didn't know about. I will never be able to forget those expressions. "Why, Mum?" Mary asked me, crying. "Why did Dad do this? Weren't we enough for him?" "It's not your fault, my love," I said, hugging her. "This has nothing to do with you. This is a decision your dad made, and we're all going to face the consequences together." George was quieter, but I could see the anger in his eyes. Anger at his dad, anger at the situation, anger because his world had collapsed overnight. "What's going to happen now, Mum?" he asked me. "I don't know, son, but what I do know is that we're going to get through this, just like we always have." That same Saturday, I went to talk to Jasmine again. I told her what had happened with Arthur, and I told her that my children already knew the truth. "And what did he decide?" she asked me. "He didn't decide anything," I said, "and that is his decision. Silence is also an answer." "What are you going to do, Mrs. Rosemary?" "I'm going to separate from him. I can't keep living a lie, and I can't keep sharing my husband with another family. But before I do that, I want to propose something to you." "What is it?" "That we talk to him together, the two of us. That we confront him together and tell him he has to choose. That he can't keep living like this, lying to everyone." Jasmine agreed. That afternoon, when Arthur arrived at the Yellow House like he did every day, I was already there, waiting for him. The look on his face when he saw me sitting in Jasmine's living room, I'll never forget it. It was a mix of terror, shame, and resignation. "Arthur," I said to him, "sit down. The three of us need to talk." He sat on the sofa across from us, with his hands trembling. Jasmine was by my side, crying silently, with little Sophia playing in the yard, not understanding what was happening. "This is over," I said. "This situation ends today. You can't keep living two lives. You can't keep lying to both of us. You can't keep hurting all your children." "Rosemary, please," he started to say. "No, Arthur. Now you listen. You're going to choose. Either you stay with me and with Mary and George, and you separate from Jasmine permanently, or you stay with Jasmine and your children with her, and you separate from us permanently. But you can't have both families. It's not fair to anyone." "And what if I can't choose?" he asked me. "Then we'll choose for you," I answered. "Jasmine and I have already talked. If you don't have the courage to make a decision like a man, we're going to make it as women." Arthur stayed silent for a long time. He looked at the floor, he looked at Jasmine, he looked at me, but he didn't say anything. "You have until tomorrow to decide," I said, standing up from the sofa. "Tomorrow, Sunday, at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you come to my house and tell us what you've decided. Either you come to say goodbye forever, or you come to tell me you've broken up with Jasmine and that you're going to be a real husband again." I left that house without saying goodbye to him. There was nothing more I needed to say. That night, I couldn't sleep at all. Mary and George didn't sleep much either. I could hear them getting up, going to the kitchen, walking around the house. We were all nervous, waiting for the next day. Sunday was the longest day of my life. We went to church, like we always did on Sundays, but I couldn't concentrate on anything Father Michael was saying. I just kept thinking about what Arthur was going to decide and what was going to happen to our lives. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, I was already sitting in the living room, waiting. Mary and George were with me. We had decided that they also had the right to hear what their dad had decided. At 6 o'clock sharp, there was a knock on the door. It was Arthur. He came into the house slowly, as if every step hurt. He sat down on the sofa across from us, just like he had on Friday, and looked at the three of us for a long time. "I decided," he finally said. "What did you decide, Dad?" Mary asked with a trembling voice. "I decided to stay with Jasmine," he said. I felt like I had been hit in the chest with a hammer. Even though I knew that could be his decision, hearing him say it out loud hurt more than I expected. "Why, Dad?" George asked him. "Why her and not us?" "Because she has a baby on the way," Arthur replied, unable to look us in the eyes. "Because Sophia is very small and she needs me, because you're already grown up and you'll be able to get by without me." "Do you really think the problem is age?" I asked him. "Do you really think you chose Jasmine because she has a baby on the way, and not because you love her more than us?" He stayed silent again. "Say it, Arthur," I insisted. "If you're going to destroy this family, at least have the courage to be honest. Do you love her more than me?" "Yes," he said, so quietly we could barely hear him. "Yes, Rosemary, I love her more. I'm so sorry, but it's the truth." And there it was, the truth that had been hidden for 6 years. Arthur had stopped loving me a long time ago, but he hadn't had the courage to tell me. Instead, he had started another life in secret. "Okay," I said, wiping away my tears. "Thank you for finally being honest. And what's going to happen to us?" "I'll keep helping you with money. The house is yours, and I'll send you money every week so you don't lack for anything." "We don't want your money," George said, standing up from the sofa. "We don't want anything from you." "George, please," Arthur started to say. "No, Dad. Don't call me George. You're not my dad anymore. My dad wouldn't have done this. My dad wouldn't have destroyed his family for another woman." My son left the living room and went to his room. Mary also got up, but before she left, she said something to her dad that I will never forget. "Dad, I hope you're very happy with your new family, but I want you to know that you lost the most wonderful children in the world for a fling, and that's something you're going to regret for the rest of your life." Arthur and I were left alone in that living room where we had shared so many happy moments for 23 years. "Is there anything else you need to tell me?" I asked him. "That I'm sorry, Rosemary. That I never wanted it to happen this way. That you were a wonderful wife and that this isn't your fault." "I know," I answered. "I know it's not my fault. It took me a few days to understand it. But now I know. Are you going to forgive me someday?" "Someday, Arthur. Someday I'm going to forgive you. Not for you, but for me. Because I can't live with resentment for the rest of my life. But that day isn't today." He left the house that night and never lived with us again. At first, he sent money every week, just as he had promised. But George and Mary didn't want to touch it. I kept it in a tin can, not knowing what to do with it. The first few months were very difficult. Mary cried a lot, and for a while she didn't want to talk about her dad at all. George became rebellious, came home late, hung out with boys I didn't like. They were both processing their pain in their own way. I was processing my pain too. There were days when I would get up and not know what to do with myself. After 23 years of being married, after 23 years of cooking for 4, of doing laundry for 4, of worrying about 4, suddenly there were only 3 of us. But little by little, I started to discover something I had never felt before. Freedom. For the first time in my adult life, I could make decisions without consulting anyone. I could cook whatever I wanted. I could watch any TV show I wanted. I could go to bed and get up at any time I wanted. And most importantly, I could get to know myself. Who was Rosemary Gonzalez without being Arthur's wife? What did I want to do with my life? What were my dreams, my plans, my goals? I started working. I got a job at a clothing store downtown. The pay wasn't much, but it was mine. It was money I earned with my own work, with my own effort. Mary finished her nursing degree and got a job at the town hospital. George also calmed down over time and kept working as a mechanic, but not at the shop where he had worked with his dad. He set up his own small shop in the yard of our house. We became a team, the three of us together, supporting each other, getting by. And we discovered that we were stronger than we thought. 6 months after Arthur left, Jasmine showed up at my house. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was doing laundry in the yard. When she knocked on the door, Mary went to open it. And when she came to tell me who it was, I couldn't believe it. "Mum, there's a lady with a baby out there," she said. "She says her name is Jasmine, and she needs to talk to you." I went out to the gate, and there she was, with a newborn baby in her arms and little Sophia holding on to her dress. She looked very thin, very pale, very tired. "Mrs. Rosemary," she said, "I'm sorry to bother you, but I need to talk to you." "What happened, my dear? How is the baby?" "The baby is fine. He's a beautiful boy. But Arthur left." "What do you mean, he left?" "He left, Mrs. Rosemary. 2 weeks ago he told me he had gotten a job in another city, that he was going there to find a better life for all of us, and that when he was settled, he would send for us. And what happened? I haven't heard from him since. He hasn't sent money, he hasn't called, he hasn't written, nothing. And I have no way to support my children." I stood there, looking at that girl with her 2 small children, and I understood something terrible. Arthur hadn't chosen Jasmine over me. Arthur had chosen to run away from both of us. He hadn't had the courage to face either situation, and he had decided to escape from everything. "Come in," I said. "Let's talk." Jasmine told me that after Arthur left my house, he had been very strange, nervous, quiet, as if he were absent. He would go for hours without talking, and when she would ask him what was wrong, he would tell her he was worried about work. The baby was born in January, a beautiful boy who looked so much like George when he was a newborn. Arthur was there for the first few days, but then he started acting strange again. One morning he got up very early, Jasmine told me. He gave me a kiss. He kissed the kids, and he told me he was going to work. But instead of going to the shop, he went to the bus station, and I haven't seen him since that day. "And the shop? What happened to the shop?" "He sold it without telling me anything," she said. "The new owner told me Arthur had sold him everything a month ago, and that he had said he was leaving town." Arthur had planned his escape. He had sold the shop, he had saved up money, and he had taken off, leaving both families abandoned. "Do you know where he might be?" Jasmine asked me. "I have no idea, but even if I did, I wouldn't tell you. That man has done enough damage to both of us. It's better if we never find him." "But what am I going to do, Mrs. Rosemary? I have no family, I have no job, I have no money. I don't know how I'm going to support my children." I looked at that girl with her baby in her arms and her little girl, and I saw something that surprised me. I saw myself 6 months ago, scared, lost, not knowing how to get by. But I had gotten by, and if I had been able to, she could too. "The first thing," I told her, "is that you need to stop crying. Crying isn't going to solve anything. The second thing's that you have to start working. I can help you get a job at the store where I work." You would do that for me after everything that happened? I'm not going to do it for you, I answered honestly. I'm going to do it for those innocent children. They're not to blame for having a coward for a dad. And that's how Jasmine started working with me at Mrs. Carmen's store. At first it was weird, very weird, working with the woman who had been my husband's other wife. But little by little we got to know each other, and I discovered she was a good girl, a hard worker, who had been deceived just like I had. The kids started to grow up together. Sophia and little Samuel, that's what Jasmine named the baby. They came to my house a lot. At first, Mary and George wanted nothing to do with them, but over time they grew fond of them. After all, they were their siblings. We never heard from Arthur again. For the first few years, I sometimes wondered where he might be, if he had started another family in another town, if he ever thought about us. But over time, I stopped wondering. It wasn't worth it to waste energy thinking about someone who had shown he wasn't worth it. 5 years after he left, some divorce papers arrived. It seems he had turned up somewhere, hired a lawyer, and wanted to officially divorce me. I signed without thinking twice. I had already been emotionally divorced from him for 5 years. The legal divorce was just a formality. The years passed. Mary married a very good boy, a young doctor who truly loved her. George also got married to a very sweet school teacher. Jasmine met a good widower who had a son, and she married him when Samuel was 5 years old. Jasmine's kids started calling her new husband Dad, and he always treated them as if they were his own children. And me? I discovered I could be happy alone. I learned to value myself, to love myself, to enjoy my own company. I travelled for the first time in my life. I went to see the ocean with the money I had saved from my job. I learned to drive a car at 55 years old. I made new friends. I started reading books. I discovered I had a talent for making crafts, and I started my own small business. Most importantly, I discovered I didn't need a man to be complete. For 23 years, I had believed that my worth as a woman depended on having a husband, on being a good wife. But I learned that my worth came from within myself, from my strength, from my ability to get by, from my love for my children, from my work, from my dreams. 15 years have passed since I discovered Arthur's double life. Now I am 70 years old. I am a grandmother to 5 beautiful grandchildren, and I can proudly say that I am a fulfilled woman. Did I forgive Arthur? Yes, I forgave him. Not for him, but for me. Because resentment is like a poison you drink yourself, hoping it will hurt the other person. But the only one who gets poisoned is you. Do I miss him? No. I miss the man I thought he was. But that man never really existed. It was just an illusion he maintained for many years. Do I regret faking that trip and discovering the truth? Never. Because if I hadn't discovered it, I would have kept living in a lie for the rest of my life. And I deserve to live in the truth, even if the truth hurts. To all the women who are listening to me, I want to say something very important. You are worth so much more than you think. If you ever find yourselves in a situation like mine, don't stay quiet out of fear. Don't stay in a lie out of habit. Don't stay with a man who doesn't value you out of fear of loneliness. Loneliness is lived, but betrayal is suffered. And it's better to be alone and at peace than to be with someone and at war. Jasmine and I are very good friends now. Our children are true siblings. They love each other, support each other, and visit each other. The grandchildren play together as if they were cousins. And all of that came from one of the most painful situations of our lives. Sometimes life takes something away from us that we thought we needed to teach us that we can live without it. Sometimes it breaks our hearts, so we can learn that we have a stronger heart than we ever thought. My story isn't a sad story. It's a story of discovery. I discovered that my husband was lying to me, yes, but I also discovered that I was braver than I thought. I discovered that I could get by on my own. I discovered that I could forgive without forgetting. I discovered that I could help another woman who had gone through the same thing as me. I discovered that I could be happy in a way I had never imagined. We all have stories to tell. We all have scars that have made us stronger. The important thing isn't that we fall, but that we get up. It's not that we get hurt, but that we heal. It's not that we get betrayed, but that we learn to trust again, starting with trusting ourselves. If any of you are going through something similar to what I went through, I want you to know that you can get through it, that it's worth fighting for yourselves, that you deserve something better. And if you ever have a gut feeling that something isn't right in your lives, listen to that little voice inside. That little voice that told me not to get on the bus, to stay and investigate, to fake that trip. That little voice saved me from continuing to live in a deception. Trust yourselves. Always. Always trust yourselves. This is my story, the story of Grandma Rosemary, who faked a trip and discovered that her husband was living another life. But it's also the story of a woman who discovered that she could live her own life, complete and happy, without needing anyone else to complete her. A big hug to all of you. And remember, you are stronger than you think, more valuable than you imagine, and more capable than you dare to dream. Take good care of yourselves, and never, ever let anyone take away the worth you have just for being who you are. With all my love, Grandma Rosemary.